All right. So as Ben rightly mentioned, today I'm going to be talking about how to tackle the 3 business sales challenges through video. And I think we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm asking that we have a little bit of engagement in the chat. So I'm going to ask a few questions as we go, and I'm looking for some interesting answers. So let's dive into it today. So the first thing I'm going to ask is more of a rhetorical question. What if you could hire a full-time salesperson for 5 years for under $10,000? Gee, that sounds pretty amazing, doesn't it? And another question as a Colombo question from that, but what if your next salesperson wasn't a salesperson at all? So something just to think about as we kind of dive in. So today, just to summarize again, what Ben was talking about is we're going to tackle these 3 sales funnel challenges. So first is challenge 1 is that people aren't aware of your brand, product, or service. They just don't know you exist. The second one is that there is little engagement with your brand, and this is generally amongst people who know who you are, but they're not interacting with you. They're not interacting on social media, or they're never opening any of your emails. Challenge 3 is that your leads or potential customers aren't inquiring. They're just not picking up what you're putting down. They're not buying your product. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at how we can tackle that through creative content. So diving into the first question, what I want to get people interactive in the chat is, what do you do to raise awareness of your brand, to get your name out there, to get people interested? So I'd like to see some interesting answers of maybe different things you do. Smoke signal is probably phasing out a little bit, but I'm interested to kind of hear what you do to get your name out there. Running some events on social. Oh wow, lots of really good social media usage there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a case study, and all of these will come back to a case study. And the first one's for a brand called Drain Pro, who needed more brand exposure. They were quite competitive in their market, and they had a good sales proposition, but there just wasn't enough awareness of who they were. And what we had to do as a challenge for brand awareness was create association. So when there's a problem, how did they solve that problem? And also invoke some emotion. So for us, we solved this problem using humor. And we're going to watch a little case study in a second. But what we did was we created a 30-second YouTube commercial that was direct interest targeting. We use comedy to engage with the audience and invoke that emotion, which makes it memorable. And in this scenario, we also were a little bit cheeky and created a little bit of a jingle or a song that goes with it. Why did we do this approach? Well, awareness comes from it being able to associate a brand or a problem with a scenario. So basically, the idea is that association game when it comes to brand awareness. So I want to see a show of hands. Who here skips ads on YouTube? All right, so it's pretty much everyone. So I just want to play you this, and then I'm going to talk about it in a little bit more detail in a second. Please let me know if you don't hear the sound. Now, you're probably wondering what on earth did I just watch? And that was exactly the point. So the name of the game with brand awareness is basically to get people to associate your brand with a problem. And luckily for us, this actually worked an absolute treat. So as most of you raised your hand when I asked the question, do you skip ads? This was one of our successful ads because we took a little bit more of a creative approach. Nearly half of every single person that watched this watched it to completion when they could skip after 5 seconds. So achieving effective viewer rates and effective impressions of the brand. The next question I want to ask, and I'm going to throw it back to you, is how do you connect with your audience? So once someone knows who you are, what do you do to engage them, to keep them interested in what you do? I'd really be intrigued, what are some unique tactics that you have to make sure that people are remembering who you are and coming back to what you do? phone calls, emails, very effective, very effective. Lunches and dinners, love getting in person and catching up with people. It's very effective. Zoom meetings is obviously another one. So the next case study is BeFit Food, and they wanted to increase interest and in community engagement because people knew who they were, but they just weren't getting enough interest and engagement with their products. And when they knew that they had a good potential audience of potential customers, they weren't getting the kind of inquiries and people coming back. So what we did in this scenario was we solved it by being socially engaging. In this engagement piece, the name of the game is predominantly remarketing and constant frequent engagement. So we developed a suite of short promos specifically for social media. And we created these in a way that the client could actually generate themselves for future. So although we had the base template, it made it very easy for our client to frequently make more content to create a touch point. And why did we choose this approach? Well, the brand had a proven social media presence, as I mentioned. They had thousands upon thousands of followers for their brand. And we chose this approach and created social content that could engage with that existing audience and talk about potential offers that were coming up and stuff that might be seasonal. So obviously, being content for social, it needs to work well without sound. So I'm going to keep talking as you're watching this, but the idea was to be able to connect quite well on a visual level with the type of audience that they wanted targeting, which is predominantly women. But also get a strong message through and talk about those unique selling points and a still offering. So not much, but very, very easy to communicate through the social media platform, being very text heavy and very visually appealing. What was the outcome of this particular campaign? It led to over a 100% increase in sales, which is staggering. It also generated high sales for one of their particular $800 products. It showed the caring and friendly side of the brand, and rather than being something that's faceless and didn't necessarily engage with the particular audience. Last was that we were able to create a remarketing audience from people who had already watched the videos. So when we were able to show them this content and they had engaged with it, it created a list of potential customers that the client could reach out to. Last question that I'm going to ask today. What tricks do you use to close a deal? And I think this is, everyone might have some cheeky ones. I know Martin is an excellent salesperson and has some cheeky tricks that he uses to close a deal. But I'd like to hear, what are some things that you might do to get someone over the line? You see Martin intensely tapping away at the keyboard. That's some good. Building trust, that's a great one. Yes. Authenticity, that's another really good one. So what we did as a brand, so with this next case study, Nordic, they are a luxury furniture brand designed at the everyday consumer, and they needed to move product and increase inquiries. So they're getting fantastic brand awareness. Again, next point down the funnel, fantastic engagement with their brand, lots of interest, people coming to the website, checking out products, but people just weren't buying. So our solution, how we solved it, we created a series of short product videos specifically about products and their features, and we filmed the products in a variety of ways that helped bridge that gap from just static photography of furniture to being able to give people a bit of more sense of the texture of the product. And also we're able to be seasonal again with some communication about product features and also pricing. Why this approach? Well, you can only communicate so much through the use of static images. An audience can gain a greater sense of the furniture's quality, texture, and size through video. This was the approach that we took, and it was designed and to be used. Small step up from photography, but the results of this out of life that we had for both their website and their social channels was staggering. So the outcome, it resulted in a huge boost in purchase conversion. So people interested in the product and then deciding to buy. One of the biggest claim to fame was it actually sold out of their slowest moving product. So that was a huge win for the client and also for us in proving that the content works. Lastly, it worked effectively on social media for remarketing. So people who were initially interested in a product were able to see the content and then be reminded of the product and come back to buy it later on. So the final act, I'm just going to summarize things here for you again, and we're going to bring it back to our initial question. What if you could hire a full-time salesperson for 5 years for under $10,000? Well, let's compare the pair. So salary, each solution that I've presented today would cost well under $10,000. In terms of the hours worked, well, these videos work day and night, not like your average staff member, and they never charge overtime. I'm a bit of a salesperson myself, so I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot here. But last one is location. These videos get deployed in the perfect place for the perfect solution and never get lost on their way to a presentation. Lastly, here are some of the interesting takeaways from today. Video is as expensive as the budget that you set. So although these are some very defined solutions, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. You can do it with yourself with an iPhone, or you can go out and hire James Cameron and create the next Avatar or Titanic. So really, it's just down to you and how big you want to go with your marketing when it comes to creative content. Video works 24/7. Unlike you, a video can work all day and all night. And as we went through and did our beautiful pitches this morning and talked about budgies, we only have that opportunity to do it in person, but video can do it all the time for you. It never says the wrong thing when it gets tired. And yes, I checked, it also works on public holidays. But the last thing to remember with video is that there is no silver bullet. Every approach, every challenge, and every platform requires a slightly different approach to get the best conversion, which is why we like to come in and help work out the perfect challenge for you. So that's been my presentation today. Lights, camera, let's get fresh. I'd love to chat to anyone who's interested in exploring some creative content for their brand. Thank you.